welcome to 2RightAngles, your guide to creative advertising and junior advertising portfolios. We are your hosts. I am Sarah.
And I'm Francesca. We're the two women behind Book 180, the first global 6-month, all online, 100% female-owned portfolio program. Every show is going to feature two creative industry leaders discussing their current favorite workout in the world, and then we'll review a junior creative portfolio together.
So join us as we highlight good work, great agencies, and ways you can improve your portfolio so you can land your dream job in advertising. So today our two guests are ACD's copywriter Rose Schuchat and art director Stacy Randolph from FCB Chicago. They work across all brands for Kimberly-Clark, including Poise, Kleenex, Cottonelle. And what's interesting is they actually work as a remote team. They balance Stacy being in person in the Chicago office and Rose being remote in Denver.
They met at CPS many years ago, and it's so interesting to see how your classmates become your future network, because years later, they started working together as a team. They look at junior books all of the time, and they've been mentors for a lot of students in the past, so we're really excited to see what they have to say about Kelsie Edwards' portfolio today.
All right, welcome, guys. Thanks so much for being here. We're so happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, hello. Thank you.
Yeah, so good to see you guys again.
I know.
You too.
It really is. It's so fun seeing you. I wanted to ask, how working remotely has been going for you guys.
Well, I feel like we can probably both speak to it, but I was at FCB, and then last August I moved to Denver. So Stacy and I had a year of in-person partnership, and obviously we met at CPS too, so we kind of go way back.
Yeah.
And I had been in person at the agency for about 3 years, so it's been a little case-by-case basis for FCB. Definitely during the pandemic, they hired remote people. So we actually, in our little pod, they call it at FCB, of the 3 ACD teams, half are remote and half are in person. Oh, wow. So it's actually been an interesting vibe to have our ear on the ground and our remote. So I think for me, it was helpful that we were in office together for that time. So it doesn't feel as unfamiliar. And I'm also very familiar with the office and who's there and how it works.
That's true.
So for me, that helps a lot with being remote, is just sort of having that basis.
Yep. And what brands do you guys primarily work on? Is it still Poise? And depends.
We work across Kimberly-Clark, so mostly all of their brands. So that is Poise, Depend, Kotex, Cottonelle, Kleenex. Am I missing any?
Not for Kimberly-Clark, but we did FCB went to this pod structure, and it's still sort of new and we're figuring it out, but it's basically just 6 little pods. And so there are other things in our pod like Stonefire, Go RVing, some new business things. And so the idea is that we would all sort of touch all of these brands,
That's cool.
but it's still sort of new. So we're mostly Kimberly-Clark.
That's cool. When did that structure shift happen?
In the spring, late spring. Yeah.
And did they take into consideration who's remote, who's in office to try and balance that feeling? No? I wonder what prompted the shift. Maybe
I think it was mostly client teams that made sense together. So you'll see some specialties kind of grouped up based on the clients, but a number of reasons.
Yeah, I think and I think too, there's some accounts that are slower and some are that we're just getting pounded. And so it's can we sort of adjust and be able to pull resources from slower accounts and help out the people that are on these kind of more, intense ones, and then also give those people a little break sometimes. So I think that was the idea.
Or an opportunity if you're on the other side.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. Well, we like to kind of start off the whole thing by asking you guys if there's anything out in the world right now that's kind of stood out to you recently. It can be from FCB, it can be something you've worked on, or just something totally different. But I'll start with you, Rose. Is there any campaign out there that's caught your eye?
Yeah, I really liked the, and I think it was sort of stunty activation, low budget, but I liked the Capri Sun kid noise canceling technology. And as a mom, it made me laugh. And it was, they basically just went to a Best Buy or whatever, a tech store, and they were like, this is noise canceling. And they had the kids just drink from the Capri Sun for 40 seconds. But it was so cute and funny. And it was like a lo-fi tech vibe, which I really liked.
That was really funny too. We shared that internally at our school when it kind of came out.
Yeah.
So funny. Stacy, what about you?
Yeah, we were actually talking about this yesterday, and there's just one good old-fashioned TV spot on right now that every time I see it, I just like chuckle and think how much fun that probably was. There's a TV spot for Geico about a DIY house.
It's a great lot. And the previous owner was really into DIY.
Okay. Automatic shade.
Stair slide.
At least we could bundle our home and car insurance with Geico.
True. Super slippery. Woo.
Is that a chinchilla?
Yes. Wait to see this. A Murphy tub.
Finding a perfect home is hard. Thankfully, Geico makes it easy to bundle and save.
What? Look at all that floor space.
And basically, the whole premise is like the perfect home is hard to find, but bundling your home and car insurance is easy. So just the simplest premise, but it is just bit after bit after bit after bit, going through the whole thing, showing how you can take something that's like pretty straightforward and like make it fun, put a spin on it. I just love physical comedy. So there's moments where like a guy is trying to run up a slide instead of stairs, or like pull down a trundle bathtub instead of a trundle bed and the water goes everywhere. So just dumb, but like how much fun they probably had coming up with that list of like, here's 30 stupid things that we could do here to make this point, and then going and shooting those just seems very joyful.
That and the production must have been fun too, like being on set, like let's pull out this trundle bath and like the water's gonna go everywhere, like
need a little time to reset that one.
Yeah, I always love how Geico, like I feel like Geico almost more than any other client ever, like never sticks to a campaign for long. They're like something completely different this year, and then the following year
you still know it's Geico. Like it's like they've just established a sense of humor that I feel like is pervasive.
Okay, well let's get into sharing. I'll share my screen here and we can take a look at Kelsie's book. Back to her homepage because I was looking at her About Me page. So, Kelsie Edwards is an art director. She's a recent graduate of Book 180. She was a fall 2022 student. So she really took a leap on a chance on us, which was so fun. You know, she was fabulous student. She's been working in Indiana as a digital marketing specialist at Opportunity Enterprises, and it's this really cool organization that supports individuals with disabilities. But now she's looking for her like first job in art direction, and I think primarily in Chicago, but she's a little open to New York too. So I'd love to know what you guys think when you first when you first see Kelsie's page here. What comes to mind?
Well, I am a big dog lover, so going to that page and just seeing animals on there was a thrill for me just from a personal perspective. And I definitely am a judge a book by its cover person when I'm reviewing portfolios. So I'm just going to click straight into whatever image appeals to me the most as my sort of first click in.
Interesting. What that is first?
Well, the dog eating spaghetti, of course, which happened to pair up with her first campaign.
That's great. Rose, what'd you think?
Well, I'm always like, is Squarespace still the thing? Like being so far out of school, I'm like, where are people building these websites? But I liked her logo with the 2 E's. Like I thought that was just like that little nod to, I think especially as art directors, I mean, I'm a copywriter. I just feel like it's always like those little details that I think help give like their personality. So I like seeing that. And I agree, the dog drew me in. So that was the first thing I clicked on too.
Absolutely. So let's go there. This campaign is for HelloFresh. For those of you who aren't looking at the screen, I'll just read this really fast. Turning HelloFresh to HelloFetch. Nearly 70% of pet owners with a household income of $100,000 or more cook for their pets at least 3 times a week. But sometimes pet food meals don't provide all of the vitamins they need. HelloFresh now includes the HelloFetch option, a catered box for your pets that feeds them tasty and healthy food. So basically a brand extension from HelloFresh, which would feature little dog meal ingredients that you could cook up for your pet.
I mean, again, as a writer, like it made me laugh. The Hello Fetch, like I think the headlines are great too. I think just in that opening paragraph too, it's not really turning it into that. It's like a more of an addition. Like you were just saying, it's like if you get your HelloFresh, can you get it for your pet as well? So it's not like they're rebranding to only pet food. I think that those just like a small clarification that I think like you understand when you look at it more. But I think that headline especially makes it seem like you might be changing it. And like the logo too, I think that says Hello Fetch in the.
It does. Yep.
It does. Yeah.
Yep. That's such a good watch out. I can't believe that I think it's because we're so into it when we look at her work that we know that it's an extension. That's such a good outsider perspective. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's just such an easy, simple fix. And like,
I mean, I got it. So even without that, I was like, this really made me laugh, and it made me. I mean, it's very memorable, and it's something that I would like keep clicking through the rest of the portfolio because I thought it was really strong.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I agree. Like this sort of business extension is such a good idea. I know it's sort of like, especially now people are like buying houses just for their pets and, you know, sort of as something that, you know, HelloFresh could do to build their business seems so smart. And I think just like little tweaks and clarifying, like, what is this? Because it's something new. Would make a big difference. And I think you get it, like Rose was saying, but just those little things, like is there a slightly different logo for Fetch than Fresh? Or I loved in the video, it ends with just the simple line, HelloFresh now includes dinner for you and your pets. Like just as a straightforward walk up that explains this is what this new thing is, goes such a long way and is like so easy to transition into. But I love the playful type, and of course like the big images, that idea of like your pet up at the table with you, and pairing with, you know, the bowl of water, like all paints a really, you know, fun picture for bringing this to life.
Absolutely. And they have a little bit of a, you know, in placement, sort of like earned media article, as if somebody had written about Hello Fetch.
And I love like that the hands in sort of like the pet head and the hands eating on the table is such a great visual bridge for like what it was and what it's becoming. You could even bring that into other pieces to have that really distinct style. And carry that into more places.
In the princess,
I think you're getting the continuity in the lines in bridging the two, but maybe the visual, like if you're seeing, you know, maybe that pinky up on the paw gets really exaggerated to have that same sense of humor.
Love that.
That's fun.
And here's sort of, I love it when students take it one step further, which is like a small activation. And this reads, Hello Fetch plus animal shelters. The first night with a new pet can sometimes be challenging for the pet owner. When it comes to adapting, it may take time for the pet. So HelloFresh wants to add ease to the first night of adopting a new pet by partnering with animal shelters to provide a Hello Fetch box with every adoption. What do you guys think?
I love that.
Yeah, and it makes it, because obviously animals are just cute and fun. Like I don't even own a dog, and like this was very intriguing to me. But that kind of more like puts their money where their mouth is. Like they care about your pets, they care about all pets, they know how important they are. Like I think it's a really nice extension. Whereas like the rest of it's sort of silly and fun, but this is like a genuine thing that is a need, and it feels really right.
And a great place to get trial to start. Like when you're at your most nervous about what you should do, they're there with a solution that you can continue using then afterwards. So it seems like the right moment to introduce this to people, in addition to doing something good for people and animals. A little puppy in the box at the bottom just kills me.
I know. I know, it's just like, I feel like that should be like the starting image almost, like how cute. But they aren't serving up dogs. They're serving up food for dogs. It is a nice little Easter egg at the bottom. This is a super duper minor thing. This is just in my head because we just spoke about this with the previous creative featured on the podcast before this, but the entire campaign lives on the background of the website, and then this is the only thing that's sort of living in like an idea board form. And I'm wondering if she just takes that box image out and puts it on the back of the website and has the write-up beside it just to keep the thread going kind of seamlessly. Okay, let's jump to the next piece. So this was actually an award-winning piece that her and her teammates did. So they entered this into the Young Ones show, and they won 2 merits, which was really cool. And we got to go to NYC and, you know, celebrate at the award show, and it was extremely fun. But this is for PETA. So I'll play the video here. So she sort of has the award video featured and then just the pieces from the video.
I thought it was really smart. I mean, I feel like the carbon footprint is obviously just everywhere. And I think it sort of lessens, I feel like PETA sometimes has a reputation for like shaming people. And I think what's cool is like, I didn't realize, it feels more accessible of like, oh, let me see. Like, I don't think I'm, you know, perpetuating animal cruelty. So I feel like it takes away some of that finger wagging, and it's more like, hey, you didn't know, like, but when you know, like, you can, you know, change what you do. So I thought that was really cool. I feel like the image on her homepage, I can't remember what it was, but I don't feel like it was as, like, I feel like that dog with the pasta, I was like with Stacy, I gotta click. I feel like maybe there's something more with the bunny, or it's like I think the way the cruelty score, it just wasn't as intriguing as I think a lot of the visuals are. And I also wonder about the order, because like a lot of this stuff, you know, like HelloFetch is so fun, but like it's made up. Like this you made and got an award for. So I wonder if sometimes people are just going to click through maybe just your first piece. So that's just a consideration, but it is on the top line, so people probably would click on it. But I thought the actual meat of it was really good, but from this homepage, I didn't read as cool as it is.
Yeah. I feel like there's like a couple of different vibes here going, right? Of like, of what she's featuring here. And I think it's probably the challenge was some of the work is humorous print, some of it's techie digital. It's hard to pick one image for each keyframe. But yeah, I think there could be a little bit more thought that goes into that. I agree.
And I don't mind like seeing a phone or seeing something in situ on there, like, because it's such a big deal to know how to function in the digital space and mobile space now. Like that is something, it's like a checkbox for people on, you know, certain jobs. So I don't mind seeing the phone there, but even there's a screen when you click in that has sort of that PETA logo that with the pattern background, everyone has a cruelty footprint. How big is yours? Like if that was big on that, like that one on the left, if you kind of cut off the bottom of that and had that bigger so you can read, like that's a really provocative statement. That might be, you know, something similar that you could, that has a little more design intrigue to click into.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I immediately want to know how big mine is. You know,
I know.
You're like, oh no, am I ruining everything? And I think like Rose was saying, like this is so smart, like kind of making you think about what you're doing, and actually like it's so complicated to figure that all out. So to really like pinpoint that and be able to kind of own that is super smart. And I like these guerrilla placements. I would love to see even more of those. Like we're next to Sephora. Can we put one next, like a billboard outside of store, like a big box store or something, and just show like this is going to continue to be impactful and is also going to let you kind of stretch your design legs on how that system applies in different spaces. So I think being able to just see, you know, a couple of those come to life would really reinforce that stuntiness. I do love, I mean, the red and black is cool. The pattern is cool. I like all that. Once we get to the Amazon storefront, it turns to blue. I don't know if that is an Amazon spec, but should that also be red and black to kind of stay in line, or explain why it shouldn't, and just make that design system work hard for you.
Yep, I agree with that completely.
I do too.
Okay, cool. Well, we will go to the next campaign. So this campaign was for LinkedIn, and it was actually done in partnership with Edelman LA for our pitch class. So it was real agency work. Edelman gave us the client LinkedIn, but essentially LinkedIn, in real life, LinkedIn is actually trying to establish a set of criteria that would help businesses show that they're actually walking the walk for equal rights and inclusive workplaces. And that criteria doesn't exist fully yet, like it hasn't been debuted, but it is something they're trying to determine, like, and trying to come up with. So that criteria would demonstrate somebody's ally gap, essentially. So our brief was for the ally gap, to highlight that there is an ally gap between companies saying they're, you know, equitable and like inclusive, and then actually being inclusive. That's a gap. And then the entire campaign was for LinkedIn. LinkedIn wants to position itself as a source of information and guidance on making the workplace more inclusive for LGBTQIA+ professionals. So it developed a research methodology to quantify how performative allyship falls short and highlight the ally gap. To launch the new tool, we humanize the ally gap by making them a real person. Meet Ally Gap. Ally is an equity and inclusion consultant who endorses and oversees the business world's treatment of the queer community.
25 out of 5,670 is 0.4% of board seats being held by openly queer individuals. Considering 7% of the U.S. population is openly LGBTQIA+, that lack of representation at U.S. companies' highest levels is concerning.
Maybe I'm a total dummy, but the first time I read this, I didn't realize that was supposed to be their name. Like, I still thought it was a tool being brought to life by a person explaining it. Okay. So, like, even in that first sort of upfront, it's like making them a real person. Meet Ally Gap. Ally is an equity. Like, I don't know. I just didn't, it didn't jump out to me that that's literally a human being. It still, I thought, was the tool. So if that, and again, maybe I'm a party of one, but that was a little confusing to me that that's really that person's name.
You know, it could be interesting if they, to rectify that, is if they said something like meet Allison Gap, and then they say Ally is a equity, you know, so you kind of immediately click it over in your head.
Or like, they did change the spelling, but I can see it still.
Which isn't make or break. Like, I still understood this was a tool, but I didn't realize the humanization of it just didn't jump out to me. I still thought this was just a person talking about the tool, even though obviously I know once you scroll down like that, I think that LinkedIn is probably the best articulation.
This should be the first image, and I believe it was in their original presentation. I think they should go back to this being an invitation, like Allison Gap or Ally is going to connect with you on LinkedIn. Boom. Now you kind of start to get it.
Now you tell a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of personifying this action, especially on LinkedIn, where it is so like peer-to-peer, like getting that endorsement or those comments, like it's so built into, you know, what's part of that platform. It's a cool way to play with it and twist it. So I like that a lot. And I love just overall all the video assets in these books. I feel like is, you know, just it's nice to see, you know, what people can do, and just is a little more engaging to click into. You don't have to do so much work when I spell it all out for you. On this one in particular, I am craving some more design elements that are pulled through everything, because so much of it is mocked up within the platform. what can we art direct here? Like, is that header, are there elements that are in that header that could show up in the auto home later on, like something in addition to the type? Like, I know we're focused on this individual, but those elements around it are important too. So I think, like, if it is the blue, does that blue show up then in the boards later on? Just making sure all of those really are showing what she can do from an art direction perspective. Even if there's, I think in the video there was like a little arrow element. Does that arrow element come across the bottom and just kind of pull all of those pieces through consistently?
Yep. These are just like subtle things that can really elevate the design of any campaign, for sure.
When you were saying that, like, this is like a very real thing that LinkedIn is like trying to do, that like at the descriptor at the top, I think even like knowing that, like you say it here, but I feel like when you're not working for that client, like to me it was like you're just phrasing it the way that we would always phrase in a book. But I think even pointing out that it really was like, I think those details that you gave, Sarah, give it a lot of credence of like, you didn't just make this up out of thin air. It's like, this is a real business problem that you were solving. I feel like for me that perked my ears even more.
Yep. I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The meat of this idea and like the interesting execution and the place that it's going is so cool though. There's definitely a lot there.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that it was very interesting that she takes a super complicated client, like it's the ally gap that the LinkedIn wants to highlight, and then really does simplify it by just saying like it's going to be represented by a queer individual that is going to be connecting with businesses. I do think that the explanation, the user journey thread could be a little bit clearer. And just thinking about this now, I kind of want her to write, like, we really did present this work to Edelman right there in this header.
Exactly. I feel like that gives it a lot more weight to it, you know, just knowing it's real, you know.
And that's a little agency experience to highlight right there.
Exactly.
100% it is.
So she should definitely put that in.
Yeah, it was like the ECD, the CD, and like a strategist, a new business. It was like top people at Edelman LA. It was very cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Great feedback on that. I completely agree with everything. So this campaign is for Home Depot. And the write-up reads that people are constantly on the lookout for their dream home, but with just a little work, they could fall in love with their current house all over again. So we have some posters here. Spice things up in the bedroom and laundry room and bathroom. Love the home you have. A little mobile banner. Does your house know where you are right now? Love the home you have. Home Depot.
On Zillow.
Yes, on Zillow. When patches get rough, buff them out. Beat house boredom by role-playing as contractor. With heated floors, you'll never get cold feet again. Okay, I'd love to know what you guys think about this campaign.
Stacy, you want to go first?
Sure, I can start this one. This was like the second one that I clicked into. Just looking at that visual, I was like, oh, there's going to be a twist here, and that's going to be interesting. So looking at that, especially like with that kind of side by side, was cool to dig into. And I really like this idea, especially I imagine for female DIYers, probably are a good target. And I would even like spell out that strategy even more of like, I think, you know, it's hard to find a house right now. Like you can like build in that, like people are having to stay and make it work, which makes this campaign even stronger. But I love like kind of the before and after and the way that the headline splits there too, kind of adding that spice to it at the end. I think there are a lot of pieces in here, but as it's laid out, it feels like less. So I wonder, maybe take each of those posters and instead of scrolling through them, put them in situ and let's scroll down that whole page, make it a meal, make me feel like this whole thing is built out and I'm just going to keep seeing more and more so that it feels bigger instead of smaller. You know, each of these, one could be a social post, one could be an auto home, like one could be a print ad. All of those pieces are there. but I think they're a little bit minimized in that scroll. And then one other note, just make sure the Home Depot is mentioned on there, because we have the updated love the home you have. And I love that logo lockup, but don't forget to give your client credit.
Yeah, even if it's like visit homedepot.com to.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
Like even though when patches get rough, buff them out. It's like, again, you're going through a rough patch, but reconnect to each other.
I'm sure there's a heated floors to heat things back up kind of play.
Yeah,
exactly. There you go. That works.
I do think too, this would be a great time for like a promo code, or like if it was out in the world and it's like, you know, ways to like instantly start, like helping people find an easy way to start DIYing their house again or falling back in love with their house.
Yeah, a promo code is good, or even like a simple app activation that's like date night DIYs or something.
Really cool and clever. And definitely agree with Stacy. I think for me, knowing that brands are usually like, I'm torn, because brands really a lot of times don't like to play with their logos. So part of me is like, well, like Stacy said, if you had the real Home Depot logo and then you had this, I think like it's a clever mix. But I'm like, in reality, we don't get to do a lot of like logo plays. It's more of like finding a campaign sort of tag and how you would say it. So I was just a little torn on when it actually is in those posters, like Stacy said, when you don't even have the Home Depot and it's just their logo. Like in the real world, especially some brands are very touchy about like changing anything about their logo. So it just made it feel less realistic, even though I think this is a campaign that would be super fun.
That's
it's interesting point. Though, like just glancing at it, you would guess like the Home Depot logo is so well known that like at first I thought it just was that, and had to look deeper to be like, oh, it's different.
I know, that's why I kind of love it as is. Okay, so this is just one last piece. So you guys know Aaron Straka, right? He was their instructor, actually, creative director at Edelman, fabulous person. But he wanted to help them with their deck building skills. And he did so by hosting this like fun party, I suppose, like online, very akin to like the TikTok. PowerPoint parties. Yeah. And they could build a PowerPoint on a deck, really, on anything they loved, anything they thought of. And Kelsie was like, what would dog breeds and their drink orders be? So
I love that idea and this premise. And I just got back from like a girls trip and somebody suggested this as an activity. So gonna have to do it next time.
So fun. It was really fun to see what everybody came up with, but this absolutely was one of my favorites in class because it's so random. Like a golden retriever would be a vodka cran. You're right. Like, there's some funny like truth in all of these.
This is great. And that's so true. Like deck building is half of what we do, you know, day to day is like making those presentations look good and then being able to present and sell them. So I think this is a very smart exercise, and I'm wildly entertained by these pairings.
Yeah.
Like these or like the big slide with the dog, I feel like those are really fun designs. Like they're like peeking out of the window. In terms of just like pure design, like I like these slides a lot. I think the ones where it's the actual drink, because it's just like the two images, like I think there's probably some way to sort of maybe even pull in that design, because like it's so funny, like the concept in general, but if you're trying to show off that you could build a really beautiful deck, those sort of bigger slides, I was like, that's so pretty to look at. So I wonder if in this one, like I think the type is really nice. The visuals, like maybe there's something you could do more with that to even show off more of your design skills.
I agree. Even if it's like cutting the drink out of one of the boxes and having it kind of overlap here or something. I agree. Super minor nitpicky feedback, but like I think it would make a big difference. But yeah, so fun. I think she's gotten a lot of traction on this. Like, so always feel free to put like a fun, quirky, dumb thing in your portfolio just to show your design and your personality. Yep.
Such a good talking point too for interviews.
100%.
Absolutely. Because immediately I'm like, well, what kind of drink is a corgi?
Okay, let's take a quick peek about me. So Hi there. When I was in 8th grade, my principal was attempting to guess each student's future career. Most students got dancer, lawyer, or dentist. I got advertising. When I'm not photoshopping, I'm heavily invested in providing support to people with rare vestibular illnesses, one of which I so luckily overcame. I connect with people through multiple platforms, including YouTube, and I even made it on a podcast. I've found that just sharing my story can be a glimmer of hope for those suffering around the world. And you can see her contacts right here and her resume. Are you guys like a big About Me page?
I am, but again, I don't know if it's just a writer thing. I love going to the About Me pages.
Yep. What about you, Stacy?
I guess I probably not as crazy. Like, I like to see it. I'm like, okay, I feel like I know a little bit about you. Like, I've met you now. But probably the work is what I'm looking at first.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What does Kelsey's About Me page say to you guys?
I like the GIF. Again, I think anytime you can show that you're just tech savvy and have movement, and like, again, as an art director, I'm like, that's cool. Like, I usually just see static images here, so I'm intrigued, by her. I do feel like the first half is very different from the second. And I feel like it is good to just keep it short and sweet usually. Because, I like clicking on these, but I'm not going to spend like 20 minutes reading it. And I feel like it is really impactful, like what she talks about, that she's overcome this, and like that makes her, I think everyone's life story, brings something different, but that's a really interesting, thing that she's gone through and sort of shapes her as a person. But that like first part about, this was sort of her destiny. I like too. It just, they felt a little disjointed for me.
I could see that.
I absolutely see that. Yeah.
I was craving after, like, I got advertising. I was like, it's such a funny way in to introduce how you got here. And I wanted to follow that with, and I was happy about it. And that's a good thing. I'm excited to be here kind of just as a quick transition into like, and so that's what we're doing now. She gets into the photoshopping, but I think sort of acknowledging that. And then also, you guys, when you were kind of introducing her at the beginning, like, she has this digital marketing experience already that isn't here, which is kind of a big deal. And I'm sure that's in her resume too, but it's worth a mention to be like, I've got some job experience here that has, is leading me into this. I do love the sort of her background, especially that it's linking out to that YouTube and podcast, like those side projects that she's doing too, just shows, sort of that entrepreneurial spirit, and lets you get to know kind of what motivates her a little bit. So I think it's all interesting for sure.
Yep. I agree.
She's
and
also really into photography, and she's in the works of making a photography like tab as well for
that's cool.
More of her side project.
So
great. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, when I'm not photoshopping, that could be when I'm not pursuing advertising and my photography passion, and, like, it could be more than that, because she's doing a lot.
She is. Yeah.
Yep. I agree. And I think just like maybe we could even shorten the second paragraph up just a titch, where it's like, I've loved providing support to people with rare vestibular illnesses. I've overcome one myself, and I've even been on YouTube and a podcast, period, and like link YouTube and podcast, and just that one sentence says the same thing, but it's just like a little tiny bit shorter. If we could take like one lesson from kind of like everything we've talked about today, even the work we loved in the beginning, moving into Kelsey's book, like, what do you think one small piece of advice could be for people building their portfolios right now?
At the video, Sarah, when I first started, I sat near the recruiters just because like the space was weird. And it was really enlightening because people just don't spend that much time with it. So you really, really like have to put your absolute best foot forward, and just know that in the initial, like, just getting in the door, I feel like people really are not going to like scroll all the way down for 6 different pieces. Like, they're just really going to kind of tab around, scroll through. Not that the details shouldn't be there and matter, but it just has to be like so clear what you're saying, so clear what the visual theme is. Like, I just think we all want to think someone's like perusing our book forever. And like, I think once you're more like further in the process, people will. But I definitely think just to get over that initial hump, you just have to be so clear of who you are and like what you're showing, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely does.
It is so true. And the thing is, you do have to put those details in every piece because you really never know which piece somebody's going to look at first.
Totally, like what draws them in. And I remember one time someone had like a music, like it was almost like a MySpace. And I remember a recruiter clicked and she was like, I hate that. I can't even look at this portfolio because of that music. So like, not that you shouldn't make bold choices and be yourself, but it is like things like that could be, you know, people click in and they click out. So you just have very little shot to make an impression.
Yep. Maybe even the dog drink thing is like a fun link at the top that's like everything you want to know about me can be learned in this deck. And then you click into that would be intriguing. And I'd click there first, set the whole tone for the book, you know? So just tiny little things just to super make sure your personality showcase like right away, you know?
Especially as an art director. I feel like copywriters get a little bit of a pass for how our books look. But
yeah. What about you, Stacy? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah. For me, thinking about it, I remember like when I was, you know, going through portfolio school, I felt like I had to do so many different things to the point that like things were complicated. Like I have to show this, but I can't do that again because I already did that once. But really like making one simple point and proving it again and again and again is what these should do. Like here is one simple thing that I'm trying to accomplish, and everything below that is proving that. And all of that consistency with the look, with the idea is just showing like this simple thing can hang together and be interesting. And because we're looking really quick, like that makes it super clear to understand versus having to like get in like, this is why this one's different, and explain all those different angles, which ultimately you'll probably have to do. But I think make a simple point and be interesting when you do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. I also, I forgot this piece of advice that I have received that I think is really smart. Even once you start working and stuff too, like the things that you should put in your book are the things you like the most. So if it's like, well, I've done a ton of TV, but I'd really rather do social, like put social stuff in there. Like it really kind of shows what you like to do. So like if you have a preference of what type of thing you love, or if you love humor, don't feel like, well, I can't make it all humorous. It's like, I mean, maybe you can, like, you know, I think like trying to pie in the sky, like, what do you want as your job? Like that can sort of be your portfolio too.
Yep.
It's not all just like you have to be jack of all trades. Like you can show that you do have a focus or things that you love the most in addition to, you know, being able to work on anything.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah. That's
really
so
good advice.
I know. I can't remember who gave it to me, but it was very smart.
I know. That's
good advice. But now you've given it to somebody else. Look at that.
Yes.
So
there you go.
Well, thank you guys both so much for being here. This was amazing. And a huge thank you to Kelsie for letting us go through your book. We can't wait to see.
So much smart thinking.
I know. So good. We can't wait to see where you end up and like all of your updates and where everything like goes to, you know, a little bit further. But it was so nice to see you guys again. So thank you so much for your time.
Always.
And it was lovely going through this book with you guys. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys
Have a
so
good
much.
rest
It was
of the
nice
day.
to see you guys.
I know. So nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
Well, we're sending out our portfolios on the 29th. So in like 2 weeks. So stay tuned for our newest grads.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Awesome. Thank you
Talk to you
guys.
later. Bye.